Free agency has passed us, and honestly, not much has changed in terms of need and positional value for the Steelers. But nonetheless, we're still going to get on with our fourth mock draft of the offseason, this time post-free agency. And we have a special guest joining us again, man. Steel Sentinel. He joined us for the first mock before free agency. It's only fitting he joins us for the first mock after free agency. Sentinel, how you doing, man?
We're in the wee late hours, the witching hour, if you will, at nighttime. All of us have all had a long day at work. We're tired, but we love the Steelers. So here we are. I can't say we're not dedicated, right?
Yeah, exactly. But we're going to get on with our seventh round mock drafts. Again, this is post free agency, and I think we can all agree not much has really changed in terms of our needs because they upgraded positions, they filled holes, but
they filled the positions of need, but it's nothing that takes it away from looking into the NFL draft.
Right.
There's still those positions are still to look out for.
And most of these are going to be early picks. But one position was definitely it's going to be added in terms of a need because of the loss of Edmonds. I think we'll start off with our mock, man. Now, of course, we are very vocal that tackle should still be the pick at 17.
As long as one of the top three is on the board.
Yes. Otherwise, it's going to be defense. What that position is, it all depends who's on the board. But 17 is 17 for left tackle is still the smartest pick in our opinion. Although, let's be honest, man, tackle and other positions could go earlier than what we truly want. Mm-hmm. So we're going to mix it up this time around. Our first three mocks, we went all tackles, pretty much the top three in each one. This time, we're actually going to go corner in the first round because, let's be real, we do need a new long-term number one corner. We signed Pat Pete. We got Levi Wallace beside him. But obviously, Pat Pete's here for a 1-2 year rental to mentor the young guys, and especially the one that we're going to draft early. That's going to be inevitable. The question is who? Well, in this mock, we go with the obvious. Joey Porter Jr., defensive back out of Penn State. PC Jr., and the reason he's in this mock is not just because he's Joey Porter's son. It's because there is obvious high interest in this guy. Him as a Steeler would be a phenomenal story, but he is not just a phenomenal story. This guy is a football player. This guy is pretty much PZ Jr., man. Maybe not as trash talking, maybe not as physical, obviously not as built, but he is just a physical corner. He is incredibly sticky. He's not someone that's going to get you a lot of turnovers or he's not going to pick off a lot of passes, but he is just everywhere in coverage. He is rarely out his frame, out his position. He's just always where the ball's at. Joey Porter is he may not be the best corner in this draft class because there's definitely better ones. And honestly, if any of the other ones are there, Porter would not be my first choice. I like Gonzalez more, like Witherspoon a lot more, but obviously those two might go before Porter. We don't know that, but most likely they will. Porter there at 17 is still a little bit of a question mark because of how many corner-needy teams they are. But if he's at 17, he's absolutely going to be high on the Steelers draft board, not just because of his name,
but because of his style of play on the football field, plus his size at the cornerback position is something that the Steelers absolutely love and adore and do need for the future of the Steelers secondary. 6'2", 193 pounds. He ran a 4.46 at the 40-yard dash, 17 bench press, and his press coverage ability is outstanding. He showcased that in Penn State for the better part of 2 years. His coverage ability is real good. Like you said, he's not a ball hawk. He's not a guy that's going to make a lot of splash plays, a lot of turnovers, but the man can cover. The man has shutdown ability.
I don't even know if he would be a day one starter because of the guys we would start initially.
But that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing at all. A good way to get his feet wet would be definitely in some rotations with Pat Pete and Levi Wallace, maybe in some sub-package situations. There's been reports that Patrick Pearson's getting talks of being tossed around as a versatile piece, which he has said to his former coaching staffs in the past. He's begged them to do that, and they didn't oblige.
No.
The Steelers won't hesitate. So if they want to get him involved early in some sub-package situations while they move Pat Pete around just to get his feet wet, that's a good way to do so. But
of course,
Joey Porter at 17 is very likely in my book, but we had to go Joey Porter in this one just because at 17, if they do want to go corner, he might be the best one on the board, probably the most realistic. But we go corner in the first round in this one, man. How do you feel about that? And who do you go in your mock?
Well, you guys kind of screwed me over here because you picked everybody's fan favorite. So I could say that Jesus is going to be selected right here at pick 17, and everybody would still hate me. So thanks a lot. But no, I think it would be a wonderful story to have JPJ coming into the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I went with a similar approach to mine. I think that a lot of us didn't expect Edmonds to be let go, and let alone to be an Eagle. And I know a lot of people have expressed how, maybe we'll sign somebody in free agency, like Taylor Rapp's an option. Well, not anymore, but at the time, Taylor Rapp's an option. Maybe Carl Joseph comes in, maybe, we get John Johnson III, even though he's that bum who's from the Browns. So, but in all likelihood, I think that whoever ends up taking over Edmonds' role has to be someone of note. I mean, Edmonds did a lot for this team. A lot of people call him a bum because he didn't get all the splashy picks and things like that, but he did a lot. He played box safety. He was down at the line of scrimmage. He was, that coverage guy for tight ends and for those slot receivers. So losing him is definitely going to need to be a priority. And in my first round, I go with the person that is the most polarizing person to take at 17 nowadays, a Mr. Brian Branch, cornerback / defensive back / safety / savior to the secondary from Alabama Roll Tide. I'll try to make this as non-biased as possible because I am a huge Bama fan, but the thing about Brian Branch, for those that don't know much about him or those who really want the 411 on who this person is, Brian Branch played the star position at Alabama. Now, the star position, most famously in recent years, was played by our boy, Mingo Fitzpatrick. All the star role means is they're kind of the ace, the wild card, the joker of the team. They can play a little bit of everything. And to be that in Nick Saban's defense, which is very complex, means that this kid has a very, very high IQ. So on top of having a very high IQ, he also is very, very productive in what was asked of him at Alabama. If you go back and if you look at the tape, if you check out the tape that's rolling right now on this video, you're going to see that this kid's tackling is probably the best we've seen in a long time. And I know that doesn't sound like the sexiest thing in the world, like, oh, he's such a good tackler. But that is something that a lot of Steelers defensive backs have struggled with in the past. I could go on a list. Sean Davis, Artie Burns, Sanquez Gold, like all of these guys. So he's a phenomenal tackler. He's 6 foot and he's a little bit light in the draws, as one of our friends says all the time, but he really will thump you and lay the wood. I mean, this kid will crack you hard. When I see him hit hard, he honestly reminds me of Ryan Clark. The good thing about Brian Branch, though, unlike somebody like JL Skinner, he doesn't ever get targeting calls because he knows how to use his technique to tackle you really, really solidly, but not get any kind of flags for it. So whenever you see this guy hit somebody hard, know that he doesn't get flagged for it because he's technically very sound. Not only that, but talk about a guy that gives you bang for your buck in the first round. If this kid was just a pure safety, then yeah, I think it was way too rich at 17. Go with best player available or go with the tackle. This kid can play slot corner, dime backer, line of scrimmage, box safety. The only position that I kind of hesitate to call him is he's not a true, pure, strong safety. He's not someone who has the athleticism and the speed to just sit on an island out there while Mingo Fitzpatrick and DeMonte KZ come close to the line of scrimmage. This is going to be your guy who's honestly going to replace more of Cam Sutton than he is Terrell Edmonds. Cam Sutton, I think, is a person, again, in free agency that we lost that's going to add a very complicated wrinkle to fill. Cam Sutton played that safety role. He played inside corner in the slot. He played outside corner. He pretty much did a little of everything. He blitzed. So you're going to need to find somebody who brings you that type of versatility. And I think Brian Branch, even though he may not be the flashiest or athletic or fastest guy, he's definitely going to provide you a solid starter and a very, very intelligent starter for years to come.
I couldn't agree more. Brian Branch he would be an absolute phenomenal fit in this defense. Like you talk about plug and play, this guy is plug and play. And to have two Bama safeties next to each other is phenomenal.
Yeah.
The guy is so incredibly talented and versatile. This guy's actually dangerous. Let's be real. I mean, the dude's a thumper. He's versatile. He can play anywhere. His run defense grade is amazing. His missed tackle rate is very low, which is what you want to see.
Yeah, I believe I read a stat somewhere that out of 174 attempted tackles, he only missed 4 in his college career.
Yeah, that's incredible.
He does not miss. And I know there's also some concern about Patrick Peterson's got to kind of groom the next guy. I mean, this guy can be groomed to be an amazing slot safety. Pat P or P2, whatever you want to call him, he's going to be incredibly hard to scheme against. Minka Fitzpatrick roams all over the field. And now you have Brian Branch. So between the three of them, you're going to be able to create a lot of confusing looks for offenses, and they're not going to know what's going to happen.
Yeah, he'd just be a phenomenal fit. And I know there's a lot of concerns about him. He can't play deep safety. That's not his role. That's Minka's role.
Yeah, exactly.
The guy would come in and absolutely replace Edmonds, and like you said, more so Sutton. The guy would be phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, I'm really growing on the possibility of the pick, and I truly believe. Now we did say Joey Porter, and we were still very prone on left tackle being the pick, but in all seriousness, Brian Branch might be right now as we speak the most realistic option because positions like corner and tackle are going to go before Branch does.
Yeah. More than likely.
So Branch at 17, I love the possibility, and I can't complain nonetheless.
You can't deny the man's talent, the man's ability on the field. The man literally models his play like Minka Fitzpatrick. He even said himself it would be a dream to play with Minka Fitzpatrick.
He's slowly becoming the heavy fan favorite.
Yes, he is.
So we'll see come draft day.
Exactly. And I mean, to throw even more, coal into the fire, I mean, the Steelers always bring the house to Alabama, but you had only the defensive backs coach running the schemes and running the different drills with these defensive backs. You also had the defensive coordinator there. So we might not see him come in for a top 30 visit. We might not even hear that he had a pro day dinner, which, draws some questions. However, I think the fact that they brought the house and that everybody who could have done that defensive backs drill segment, of course they picked the Steelers. Of course the Steelers were the ones to do it. You know what I mean? No one's thought that we were going to take Kenny Pickett. Everybody was on the Malik Willis train, myself included. I'll throw my name into the fire. And then boom, Kenny Pickett came out, and it's like, well, it was hiding in plain sight. Of course they were going to take him. I think something might be similar to what's going on here with Brian Branch.
I could definitely see that. Speaking of sending the house, of course they were not going to miss the Ohio State Pro Day. They missed it last year for quarterback reasons. No way they're going to miss it this year with two of the top tackles at their respective positions in the same school, and Paris Johnson and DeJuan Jones. Now, Paris Johnson is my personal dream at 17, but at 32, I feel like, truthfully, the most realistic option at 32 could be a linebacker, but we're going to go tackle here just because they really need to go tackle. And I already said his name, DeJuan Jones, tackle out of the Ohio State. The dude's a mammoth. The dude is massive.
And it's no secret, and the Steelers are terrible at keeping secrets, but that's how they've been for the past few years. It's no secret Tomlin adores DeJuan Jones.
Not only that, but you see the guys they brought in via free agency, and you just see Andy Weidl's track record. They want massive offensive linemen, especially at the tackle position. This guy is probably the largest offensive tackle of this draft class, just in terms of wingspan, arm length, height, weight, everything. And the guy can play, and he's actually very athletic for his size. When I first saw his measurables, I had concerns. Man, that might affect him in the future. He might have to switch to guard. Yeah, that quickly changed the second I saw his tape. The dude is athletic at right tackle, and he would be a day one starter at right tackle, and then you could switch Chuck back to left. I know there's a lot of concerns with that. I feel like we should give that another shot. As long as Dan Moore doesn't start. That's just me personally. But DeJuan Jones at 32, I just feel like that has a great chance of happening. They love their Ohio State Buckeye linemen. They sent the house to the pro day. They love massive linemen. They're aiming that, and Tomlin adores the guy.
And you ever sense throughout the draft process every year, you just sense that, you think this player could absolutely be a Pittsburgh Steeler. This guy just speaks Pittsburgh Steelers to me based off the Steelers' interests. He adores big offensive linemen. I mean, Villanueva, for example, he adored his size. He loved his size. That's why he brought him in, and look what happened to Villanueva. DeJuan Jones is a big guy, 6'8", 374. Like I said, very athletic and agile for a guy of his size. Very solid pass blocker, but his run blocking ability is outstanding. And you know the Steelers have been eyeing and adoring the fact of running the ball.
Yes, but I think another good reason for drafting Jones is I'm tired of the experiments at switching guys to guard and center and this and that, right? We need pure guys at their positions. This guy's a pure right tackle.
Yeah.
Chucks has that swing ability. He started at right tackle the last 2-3 years. Maybe switching him back to left might do him favors, and he can be the pure left tackle for at least this year and see what he does there. That's just my 2 cents in that. Sentinel, do you have a similar pick?
Well, what do you know? Great minds think alike. I also have DeJuan Jones at 32. I played with the idea of maybe a John Michael Schmitz here.
Mm-hmm.
There is a possibility he goes late. Someone might trade out of the second and pick him up late in the first. There's also a possibility the Steelers just pass on him because Mason Cole did a pretty damn good job last year. Now, me personally, I'd take John Michael Schmitz any day of the week and have Mason Cole be my new BJ Finney / J.C. Hassenauer type guy who's going to be a center and guard backup. But I thought, until I see more proof, I'll probably just go with the favorite here, and that's DeJuan Jones. Also, can we have a moment of silence for the bill that they must have rung up bringing all these big offensive linemen out to dinner at the same time? DeJuan Jones, Luke Whippler, Paris Johnson. I mean, good Lord. These each one of these guys probably would have broke the bank.
32-ounce, thanks for each lineman.
Oh, geez. But I think you guys hit it right on the nose with this one. I mean, there's no secret. The Steelers really, really like this guy. And, I mean, what's there not to like? He's the unicorn of the draft. I mean, that size matched with that athleticism is insanity. And look what they're doing, right? Look what Andy Weidl's been doing. The blueprint is right in front of you. Isaac Seumalo, people mover. Nate Herbig, people mover. DeJuan Jones, people mover. They're going into a power run game. Look at what Philly's run game is. It's a power run game. I mean, why wouldn't they try and do the same exact thing? And I know, again, there's the questions about Chooks, but Chooks started his whole journey as a left tackle prospect.
Mm-hmm.
Steelers had him start there. I mean, the fact that he could do both is pretty great, but Chooks isn't the kind of guy that you want at right tackle. He's not that kind of guy who's going to bulldoze people. He's your more technically sound person. He's your finesse guy. So keep him on the left side, watching for Kenny Pickett's blind side because that's what he does best. He's a better pass blocker than he is a run blocker. That's no secret. And let DeJuan Jones just bulldoze people on the right side of the football. I mean, on right side of the offensive line. I mean, it makes perfect sense, and I think DeJuan Jones is kind of what they'd hoped Zach Banner could have been, that big mammoth person. But we all know what happened with Zach Banner and his injury and everything, so I think this might be the second coming of that big mammoth they wanted on the right side.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Now, I would obviously prefer a more natural left tackle. Not saying Chucks isn't a natural left tackle, but truthfully, man, like we all have dreams of left tackle at 17. I know we keep saying it, but the top 3 just might not be there.
Yeah.
And that's my fear. So they might have to go defense, whether that's Branch or Porter or another player at another position, right? And then 32 or 49 is a prime spot for a tackle, more so right, because the drop in natural left tackles is severe.
Mm-hmm.
But they really adore their right tackles day 2.
And having a guy like Chooks that can move around, that has that swing ability, is beneficial for the Steelers. That way they can fall back into day 2 and get a guy like DeJuan Jones. And right there, I mean, your line's set.
Yeah.
Right there and then.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, they're obviously telling you that they want to replace Dan Moore. If they have to settle with him, they will. But trying to sign Orlando Brown was pretty much the writing on the wall for Dan Moore's future. So if that means they have to draft a right tackle and switch Chucks back to left, they're going to do it. So, but moving on to 49. The second pick in the second round. At 49, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Jack Campbell, linebacker out of Iowa. This guy quickly flew up my linebacker charts. Quickly. And only because there were obvious athleticism concerns heading into the combine and his pro day. And he shut them up, including me. This guy is a freak. This guy is a Luke Kuechly, a great value Brian Urlacher type player. He's a lot of old school with a lot of new school at the same time. This guy is fierce. He might be my favorite linebacker this draft class.
And you know who he really reminds me of? Rookie Leighton Vander Esch. When Vander Esch came into the NFL draft, you know, his size, his athleticism, his speed just stood out. And when Dallas took him and he played in his rookie season, he was a standout linebacker. Unfortunately, injuries took upon his NFL career, and it's really affected him. And he hasn't really been the same player since his rookie year. But Jack Campbell reminds me a lot of rookie Leighton Vander Esch. His size is outstanding.
It's what we need at linebacker, right?
Yes.
We've had these experiments with these smaller guys. We still are with a guy like Mark Robinson. But we need someone. We need a linebacker, like a true linebacker. Like, I mean, by size and play style. He has that 6'5", nearly 250. He ran a 4.65 40, which is very impressive for his size. And his run defense grade is great. He's not afraid to blitz and get to the quarterback. His coverage grade is actually very promising for his size and his athleticism concerns initially. He's just a smart football player.
Yeah.
Very smart. And one note I will add, man, the Steelers never attend Iowa Pro Day. Never. It's not normally on their calendar every year when they go to Pro Day visits, but they had to this year. And Jack Campbell's probably the highest name on their draft board from that school for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, he could start opposite of Holcomb initially. I think he would, truthfully. And then, of course, Roberts would be that Spillane guy, play the run defense, like Sentinel said before we even started recording. But Campbell, man, quickly flew up my board in terms of one of my favorites, not only at the position, but totally in the draft. Campbell in the second round at 49 might be a little bit of a wishful thinking, but a true steal if that's the case.
Absolutely. Campbell, with his combination of size, speed, physicality, tackling ability, and his upside in coverage, to which the Steelers currently right now do not have at the inside linebacker position. We have a lot of good run-stuffing inside linebackers with Holcomb and Roberts, but we don't really have a coverage type of linebacker. Right. I think this guy has the upside for sure.
This guy's the jack of all trades. He's definitely not the most athletic, but he's athletic enough to get the job done. He showed that in the combine. He showed that in the IOSO.
The jack of all trades. That's good.
I didn't even think of that.
That was witty. That was good. I agree. I agree with everything you said. I mean, could you imagine that guy running at you? I'd run away.
The only thing that would make him scarier is if he was missing his two front teeth, like Jack Lambert.
Oh man.
Truly. Well, I think that's a great. I think that's a great position. I mean, linebacker in the second round, that would be great. There's a lot of great guys that could be there, and he just looks good. He's already in the colors. Just take this stupid bird off of his hat. Give him the Steelers logo. That's great stuff. I went with a similar mindset in my second pick in the second round here. Again, Andy Weidel has shown that he has his fingerprints on rebuilding this team. I dare say that that's probably why they brought him in, is because they saw about the offense and the defensive lines that he's created in Philly, and they wanted similar results in their locker room. So in the second round, in the second pick, I took Keanu Benton. Now, both of us, all three of us here, had him maybe as like a third, fourth round guy when this all started, back when the Senior Bowl happened earlier this year. But quickly, this guy has risen up people's draft boards because he had a pretty decent combine, because of just his flexibility. I mean, this is a guy that can play 0 tech to 5 tech. So I know the questions are like, well, with Cam Hayward aging, where do you put him? Where does Larry Ogunjobi go? To Marvin Leal's kind of this tweener guy. Keanu Benton makes life easy. I can play anywhere. Ideally, he has really good size. He's 6'4". He weighs like 310 pounds. I mean, he's somebody that is going to clog running lanes, but also does a fairly decent job of applying pressure up the middle. And I know we all know that Steelers linemen have to be able to do both. They don't just like guys like Siaki Ika that are going to clog up run lanes. They want pass rush consistently all the time, every day, all day. So I think Keanu Benton would fit that need, especially because there's not really we don't really know what's going on with the defensive line. Does Tyson Alualu retire? Chris Wormley had that injury, so he's not going to be starting probably the first half of the season this year. Montravius Adams had production drop down as the season went on, which is kind of concerning. And then the other guys like Leal, he's only a second-year player, and really, I mean, is he a 5 tech? Is he a DN? Like, they still are trying to figure out out what the heck this guy's going to be. Cam Hayward's getting older. I mean, and then you just brought back Larry O. So I think defensive line is something we're going to see pretty early on in the draft, maybe day 2. I doubt day 1. And of course he's from Wisconsin. I mean, we already know how much the Steelers love those Wisconsin boys.
Yep. Yeah, I love the pick. I really love Benton. All three of us have been saying it for a couple weeks now. We get massive Javon Hargrave vibes with this guy.
Yes,
Oh.
without a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is, I fear a position like defensive tackle might get pushed back because now we might have to, or we are going to draft a safety early. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I hope that's not the case because I truly think a guy like Benton or any really good defensive tackle or interior defensive lineman would make this run defense whole because we have the pieces. We just need to get a run stuffing strong safety like a Branch or like someone else in the draft and then get an extra interior defensive lineman, more so a young guy. Maybe they sign someone free agency. That's still possible. They still have 4 weeks to do that. But
Yeah, absolutely. And Khan and Waddle, I mean, it's no secret they have been focusing on the trenches. They did it with the offensive line already with the guy that they brought in. They still have the opportunity to do it at defensive lineman, whether that's free agency or the draft. So, but a guy like Benton would fill that hole at D tackle. And I feel like defensive line is definitely a position that we have to focus on because although we have guys that can be productive and have upside, it is getting older, and it's still a question mark right now.
It is. Now we move on to the third round with the 80th pick. Of course, we didn't take a safety yet, so this is a prime spot to take safety. I do think they take a safety a little earlier, especially if Branch is there. But they could fall back and get a very solid day 2 guy. There's an Antonio Johnson. There's a Sidney Brown, who I have concerns about his tackling. You know, there's a Jordan Battle from Bama that get the other Bama boy. But a guy I really like is Jamie Robinson, defensive back out of Florida State. I think he's up there with Branch as one of the more versatile DBs or safeties in this draft class.
And one of the better tackling safeties at the same time.
He's versatile. You want to put him in the slot, you can do it. In the box, you can do it. Deep, you can do it. This guy would be a perfect fit for not only the 3 safety sets, but to pair next to Mingo long term. I would imagine the Steelers want to get a rookie safety to pair alongside Mingo just to have that safety position filled for the next couple years. And if they want to wait day 2 for a guy like Jamie Robinson, they very well could and get a very solid pick here. Jamie Robinson is just a very ferocious football player, probably one of the more hard-hitting safeties in this class. His run defense grade is what really impresses me. The guy is not shy to get down in the box, not afraid to hit the gap, not afraid to lay the boom on the ball carrier, no matter who it is, even if it's the quarterback.
Yeah, honestly.
The guy loves to play. The guy loves to play hard, physical, and his athleticism might be a little bit of a concern due to his combine, but...
Yeah, because I'm looking at his size right now. He's 5'11", 191 pounds, but he did run a 4.59. Now, for a guy of his size, you figure he'd run a little bit faster. But
Branch ran something similar.
Yeah, that's true. You're right about that. But his bench press was pretty amazing. He did 23 bench press reps.
Mm-hmm. So I think this guy would be a nice, solid fit at safety if they do want to wait day 2. Jamie Robinson's one of my favorites if they do want to wait on safety, which I think they have the flexibility to do so. See, again, this is why I kind of dislike that we have to select a safety now because we already have so many positions like corner, tackle, defensive line, linebacker still to select. Thankfully, the Steelers have position or they have picks early. They have 4 picks in the top 80, so they can select all those positions if they elect to do so. Or they could trade back. That's a high possibility. Khan's a new GM, right? I mean, he was built in-house, but he's a new GM. Waddle loves to trade back, so they could do that if they want to get extra picks. I would not rule that out. Maybe that's something we do in the future for certain mocks, but
if the Steelers are looking to fill the positions of need that we've been discussing, trading the number 32 pick, to which I'm sure a lot of teams would want that pick, especially depending who's on the board, you know, they have that possibility. You know, Khan even said himself, everything's on the table.
Yeah. But at the 80th pick, we have to select a safety now, and we go with Jamie Robinson.
And wherever you place this guy, the guy can ball.
Yes, he
can. He showcased in Florida State. I think he can do it at the NFL level.
And the Steelers love their versatility. So with the 80th pick, who do you select, my man?
With the 80th pick, I'm going with a position that you have already addressed, and I am picking up Diane Henley. So the last time we did this together, you guys picked Henley. And since then, I've been doing my research and watching film and watching tape, and the combine happened, and He is not only a very athletically talented individual, but he's also a very smart individual. And many Steelers reporters who were there for the Senior Bowl, who are listening in and talking to these guys, noted how bright and smart this person is. And Mike Tomlin loves those kind of guys. Diane Henley, he's 6 foot. They say he's 6'1". He's probably more 6'2", weighs 225. Interesting to note, they took both Holcomb and they took Roberts, which oddly enough, reports came out that Omar Khan actually wanted at least one of the two, but they were targeting both of them from day one, which goes to show you the type of linebackers they're looking for here. They're looking for these big crackback guys. You know what I mean? These aren't finesse Devin Bush types anymore. No offense, Devin Bush, but hot garbage. They're looking for your traditional mold, strong, smack you in the face, hit you hard type guys. Now, I think having 3 types of linebackers who kind of fit that mold, Holcomb, Robinson, and Roberts, all kind of are that, run stuffing, bruiser type. You're going to need at least one coverage guy. I mean, the Steelers like to play that coverage position, the guy who's going to spy for, well, RIP Lamar Jackson, but they're going to be spying for somebody. So they like that guy. They like that person kind of roams the middle of the field, presumably when your slot corner isn't there. And I think Diane Henley is wonderful at that. I mean, talk about like a diamond in the rough. You're my dark horse, like linebacker prospect. I mean, this is a kid that I think a lot of us aren't really talking about because nothing about him really pops off the page when you look at him at first glance. Somebody like Trenton Simpson's got that boom to him. Somebody like Drew Sanders has that flexibility and the stats, but Diane Henley had an amazing year this past year, and I think some players it just takes a little bit longer, like Kenny Pickett, to develop and to season and to understand the game and for it to slow down for them so that they can really start to produce. And I think having somebody like this would complement the linebacker core very, very well, especially now that we've seen the guys that they're bringing in.
Yeah, I agree. I really like this guy, and I'm just so impressed with how far along he's come in coverage. I agree with what you said about the fact that we need a coverage linebacker. That's exactly what the Steelers are targeting. Yeah. They signed those 2 linebackers in free agency to help the run. Now we just need an all-around athletic guy to build around that has everything. The run-stopping ability, the blitz ability, but especially that coverage ability. He holds that, does Henley.
Mm-hmm. Even for his size, he's 6'2", 225. He's a little scrawny, I guess you could say, for an inside linebacker, but that doesn't really show on the field. The guy's physical, the guy's speedy, coverage ability is very good.
Well, what's so impressive about it is he used to play wide receiver.
Yeah, he's a wide receiver turned inside linebacker, and keep in mind, the Steelers adore those offensive players that switch to defense. I mean, Robinson's recently, Justin Lane's a recent guy that was a receiver that turned cornerback. I know they're not notable names. They didn't really turn out well. Robinson's to be determined, but the fact that they adore those guys, Henley really puts his name and could put his name in that discussion. But Henley just sticks out. He stuck out for the Washington State Cougars defense. He came so much, being developed for 4 years before transferring, and the guy's athletic as hell. Mm-hmm. The guy's coverage ability is good. His tackling is great.
I think him at 80 would be a steal.
I think it would be a steal.
And if they do want to wait on linebacker later, they can because it's stacked. And a guy like Henley, like you said, man, is a diamond in the rough. Love the selection. Now we move on to the 4th round. Okay, we do have a 4th round pick. With the 120th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Nick Herbig, edge out of Wisconsin. Yes, we went edge. We understand Bud Dupree's coming in for a visit, and a return is imminent as long as the physical turns out well. As of this recording, he is not signed. He could be by the time this is uploaded. I have no clue. If he is, that's great. But that also doesn't exactly roll out edge for me, mostly because Bud is still a little uncertain due to his health. Maybe the Steelers worry about that. But also, obviously, Nick Herbig is the brother of Nate Herbig, who the Steelers just brought in. And the Steelers just adore the bloodlines. They just have to have a brother for everybody on the team, even if they're not actually a football player. They got to come in some capacity.
And Philly's the city of brotherly love?
Yeah, right? Yeah, they say Philly's the city of brotherly love. I mean, look across the state. Pittsburgh has the Watt brothers. Well, maybe not anymore, but they had the Edmonds brothers, the Davis twins, the Hayward brothers. I mean, you guys already know the drill. So
why not bring in the Herbig brothers?
I mean, they could do it. They love the bloodlines, but also because Herbig is a very good edge guy. He is undersized. That's his main concern. If he was taller, you're talking a possible day 2 pick because this guy can get to the quarterback.
But because of his size, that could cause him to drop down a bit, but that could be where the Steelers pick him up.
I've also heard because of his size, maybe there's maybe teams explore using him as an off-ball linebacker. I mean, he can drop in coverage as a 3-4 outside guy, but moving him to inside, I don't know if that's ideal because of his inexperience there. They could try it if they want to experiment. This guy would come in as edge depth. I mean, his size is a little concerning, but I think he can get to the quarterback. And because he's a Wisconsin boy, TJ Watt would just adore that and welcome him in and pretty much take him under his wing.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt. His size, it's definitely a concern. Size does matter at the NFL level, but you can't deny the guy's tape on the field. You can't deny his athleticism, his off-the-ball skills, his take-on skills, the way he sheds off blocks, all that.
His arsenal of pass rush moves is very astonishing. That's why I think his size might be a concern, but he can position around it. His arsenal of pass rush moves is the reason why he has had 20 sacks the past 2 years. This guy's a good football player, man. Now, again, I know they're bringing in Bud, but I still wouldn't roll out edge, especially if they really do adore the bloodlines.
And a guy like Nate Herbig, he's an intriguing athlete.
Yeah, he really is. What about you, man? What you got in the 4th round?
So in the 4th round, a position that honestly is still kind of perplexing to me, and I'm still kind of hesitant to see where they go with this because they haven't addressed it in free agency yet. And if anything, they've lost players in free agency. They lost Steven Sims, so you know where I'm going with this. Wide receiver. I think that you lost a wide receiver. I think that you also lost a pretty damn good kick and punt returner. So do we really want to go back to the days of Gunnar Olszewski fumbling the ball? I'm going to say no. Anthony Miller, does have lots of experience with punt and kick return. He was a 2nd rounder for the Bears before we ended up taking him on to the team. But he had an injury last year, hasn't played in a bit. He's getting older, so question marks there. Also, Steelers Nation, I need you to collectively take a deep breath here and realize that when I say this, it doesn't mean that I'm not a fan of Calvin Austin III. I have big hopes for the kid. But as a personal trainer myself, I can tell you that when you come back from a Liz Frank injury, there are some concerns about speed, especially because Liz Frank injury, for those that don't know, it's a foot injury. It's a foot injury that hopefully does not cripple his top speed. Not only that, but Calvin Austin III wasn't really a punt and kick guy. I mean, he'd done it a few times, but that wasn't like his thing. So that is a concern. That is an option. We can't fill every position of need in this draft. Maybe they bring in an undrafted free agent like Darius Davis out of TCU, who I'm a real big fan of. A guy that they could maybe even explore looking at because he has that Michigan State connection is Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed has that kick punt return ability, very good at it, and he also brings a lot of talent at the wide receiver position. But I'm just going to assume, for the sake of this mock, that they're either going to address it in undrafted free agent, or they just have really good competition and Anthony Miller or someone like Gunnar Olszewski steps up. That being said, wide receiver is still a need. Deontay Johnson's coming to the end of his contract. Whether or not they extend him is to be seen. Again, we lost Steven Sims. Miles Boykin's still a free agent. Calvin Austin III was essentially a redshirt rookie. And then you have George Pickens, who's a stud. So with my 4th round pick, I'm taking Jonathan Mingo. Mingo and Mingo was his name. Jonathan Mingo was somebody that I was like kind of looking at the beginning of, this was like really the beginning of like the off season. And I didn't really think much of him. I started looking at guys like Jordan Addison and Zay Flowers. But then I heard today that the Steelers went ahead and they actually already had a top 30 visit with Mingo. Mm-hmm. And I kind of started doing some deep diving, and I'm going to tell you something right here, right now, okay? This player, Jonathan Mingo, reminds me a lot of another Ole Miss player, okay? 6'2", Jonathan Mingo. This other player I'm thinking of is 6'1". Jonathan Mingo has 32-inch arms. This other player has 33-inch arms. Jonathan Mingo weighs 220. This player weighs 226. Jonathan Mingo kind of reminds me of A.J. Brown. Call me crazy, call me insane. They have very similar traits. They're built the same. They have position flexibility both in the slot and outside, which the Steelers love. He is fast. He ran, I believe, give me a second. He ran a 4.46. So the dude's got some speed. And he's built like a Mack truck. I mean, this kid has some oomph to him. He's hefty. He'll crack you. I mean, he's not light in the draws like Calvin Austin III is. I mean, this kid's got some chutzpah, okay? They could bring in a guy like Parker Washington, but there's some injury concerns there. And the thing about Mingo that the Steelers drool over is this kid is a willing and effective run blocker. What better thing do you want on your team than a kid who can play anywhere on the field on offense? He can line up slot or outside. He will willingly run block for you like George Pickens does for the Steelers. And on top of that, he's got pretty decent measurables. I mean, this kid is, again, 6'2", really great hands. His route tree needs some work. He's obviously not the flashiest guy. He didn't have the greatest production in school. His last year, he only had about 800-plus yards and I believe about 5 touchdowns. But again, what do you really want out of your wide receiver 3 right now? You don't need a home run hitter every single time. You just need somebody who's going to give you depth and somebody that you can rely on to contribute to other parts of the game. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren are about to run the wheels off those two this season. Okay, it's no surprise that that's what they're going to try and do with this power run scheme that we've been talking about since this video started. So why not add to another piece who's willing to block and punch somebody in the mouth so that Najee can get 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 yards?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think Mingo is a real heavy sleeper for maybe late day 2, but more than likely early day 3. I think he'll be a very nice starter at some point in this league. The guy's like a smaller tight end, right? He has the size, he has the measurables, he has the speed, he sure has the physicality. I mean, if they wanted to insert him as like a extra tight end in some way, they could do that because he brings that height, he brings that physicality. And the reason why I keep bringing up his height is because another thing I want to add about the receiver room that I think is definitely needed, we traded Chase Claypool. We lack height. All we have is Pickens, 6'1", maybe, right?
Yeah.
We don't have height at the receiving room. We could use that.
Or even depth at that. Like, again, Boykin's still a free agent. Sims went to Houston. Gunner's not really proven. He lost his job to Sims when it came to the return ability. Calvin Austin, despite the upside, can't say it enough, but, he's still uncertain. Wide receiver, I can see the Steelers definitely drafting a receiver because it's what they always do.
They're going to, and they honestly have to. They haven't addressed depth.
They don't really have a point, but a guy like Jonathan Mingo, he's a very promising prospect. I don't know if it's just me, but he may not be as big or maybe even as athletic, but when I look at this guy's tape, he reminds me a lot of Martavis Bryant.
I could see that.
With his yak yards ability, his blocking ability, how tough and grindy he is on the field. Like he reminds me a bit of Martavis Bryant.
He would bring the size, the speed, and the physicality that pretty much Chase Claypool had, but kind of lost before we traded him. But he would pretty much resurrect that back into this offense. So I definitely like that selection in the 4th round. Now, we do not have a 5th or 6th round pick, or do we? Okay, there's a little twist in our mock specifically.
Mm-hmm.
We had to do a little twist here, man. It's the first mock after free agency. We had to, right? Now, because of the signings of Isaiah Sayamalu and Nate Herbig, Kevin Dotson is no longer a starter on this team. He is not. Herbig has taken his spot as the primary backup. As pretty much everyone's backup, let's be honest. He's that versatile, right? Now, they could retain him as pretty much in every game inactive if they wanted to. But
the Kendrick Green role.
Pretty much. But why would you do that when you got someone who has 2 years as a starter at left and right guard? I feel like that has some trade value. Now, he's coming into his last year of his rookie contract, but I feel like a guard-needy team could definitely throw a nice 5th-round offer at the Steelers because of his experience, because he's still young, and just his the fact he started the last 2 years at the guard position.
Yeah.
That has some value in my opinion. So, in our opinion, the Steelers trade Kevin Dotson to the Seattle Seahawks for the 151st pick, which was actually our original pick, but we get it back because we traded Kevin Dotson to the Seahawks. He has no spot on this team no more. I'm sorry. It's nothing personal. There's no room for him no more.
No.
Hasta la bye-bye.
Exactly. I mean, I think we could get a nice offer for him. I think Kahn and Waddle have some up their sleeve. I don't know what trade. I don't know what it could be. It could be a trade up. Could more likely be a trade down. But they need extra picks in the middle of day 3. Okay.
And Kevin Dotson, as of right now, is the most expandable player currently on this roster.
You're absolutely.
There's really no role for him. I'm sorry. There isn't. Herbig's taking his spot. I mean, Kendrick Green might as well not even be here. Let's be honest.
Kendrick Green is gone.
But Dotson is no longer needed. So might as well trade him, get something out of it, get our 5th back.
So we get our 5th back from the Seahawks. And with that pick, we double dip at corner. Because I think that's going to happen. We kind of have to. With the 151st pick from Seattle, which was actually originally ours, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Carrion Bennett, defensive back out of Maryland. Yes, we double dip at corner and we go with the Maryland guy, but not the one that everyone's really talking about, which is Deontay Banks. How about the guy opposite of him?
And that's Carrion Bennett.
Yes, who is very athletic, very fast, has the measurables, can play slot, can play outside.
You know who he reminds me of, actually? It's somebody that we were a big fan of last year and who was taken actually by Seattle last year in the mid-rounds, and that was Kobe Bryant.
Maybe a little bit. Maybe not as big, but...
Yeah, definitely not as big.
I kind of see it. And honestly, the Maryland duo is kind of having a similar feel. I mean, Deontay Banks is getting that early talks, maybe not like a Sauce Gardner, but he's getting the early selection talks. But don't forget the guy beside him, which is Carrion Bennett. And I think he's underrated. I think he'd be a nice mid-round selection for obviously depth, and I think his speed would do wonders on special teams to get his feet wet. And maybe because I do trust our defensive back core. I trust Austin. I trust Grady Brown. The past couple of years, our defensive back core has been very well in terms of development. Much better than what we grew up watching, let's be honest.
Yeah.
So I trust our development to get something nice out of this guy. I think his versatility could offer something nice. I think he could push Witherspoon for a roster spot. Because as of now, he's still on the team. Yeah. I personally feel like James Pierre can take everything that Witherspoon offers, but if they want to push Witherspoon, I think Bennett could do that because of his versatility, because of his speed. And, of course, the Steelers love their Maryland defensive backs. I mean, I know it hasn't really worked out in the past. Sean Davis, Antoine Brooks, hasn't really worked out, but I think Bennett has the potential, man. He's a sticky corner. He can pick off the ball. I mean, 27 passes to defend the last 2 years. The guy knows how to get his hands on the football.
Yes, he does.
So we double dip a corner, and we make a trade to do so. I think double dipping a corner is a real possibility, and honestly, I think it just needs to happen, man. Because we need to keep corner young. We need to add depth, and I think having a veteran like Pat Pete would do wonders for that position. So that's what we do, man. A trade scenario in this to pretty much get an extra player and a double dip a corner. But moving on to the 7th round. We do have 2 7th-round picks, which is a good thing for, obviously, training camp, for camp bodies, for practice squad, but possibly a chance to give some of the underrated guys a shot, man. Now, a position we have not addressed yet was defensive tackle, and this is my fear with safety is now we're going to have to push a position back. That might be defensive tackle because, like Sentinel said, Ogunjobi's back. They really like Leal. They drafted him in the 3rd round last year. Of course, Cam Hayward's still the anchor there. Maybe they still trust Monty Adams. I personally wouldn't. I would love to select defensive tackle earlier, like Sentinel did with Benton in the 2nd round. That'd be great. But if they have to push it later, Waddle does have a reputation for finding late-round gems.
Yes.
And that's at any position, but especially defensive line for the Eagles. And with the 23rd or 234th pick, the Pittsburgh Steelers select Broderick Martin, defensive tackle out of Western Michigan, or Western Kentucky, excuse me. 6'5", damn near 340.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
The guy's massive. This guy would be a gap filler for sure, but I do think his pass rush moves are very underrated. Now, he's coming from a small school, but I do like his potential, man. I think he'd be a nice gem for, obviously, training camp and a camp body and a practice squad. For 7th rounders, you're not really asking to be a day 1 starter. And that's not what they would do with Martin. But he could come in and definitely get his feet wet in training camp and see what he can offer. But I think his size and his measurables is intriguing for his position. Mm-hmm. It's honestly something we could really use. And his power. He's an aggressive defensive lineman. So I hate to select it late, but if they have to, then get someone like him later.
Yeah, a depth piece, a project.
Exactly.
Another guy on the defensive line group.
So what do you select in the 7th round, man?
So in the 7th round here, I'm going for extra depth. I'm also going to go defensive line here, truly because even though we brought in Benton, I still think that you're going to need defensive and offensive line. You can't have enough of them. Like, the more, the better. I mean, we don't know what's going on with Tyson Alualu, to reiterate once again. And also, Chris Wormley is gone. He's not going to be playing. I don't even think they're going to re-sign him because of his injury. And honestly, his play has dipped down over last season. So I think they're going to just bring in a guy who's a true nose tackle prospect to try and push Montravius Adams. So I'm having the Steelers taken in the first pick in the 7th round. Jared Clark, the defensive tackle out of Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers, which is a mythical blue chicken for those of you that don't know what a Chanticleer is. Talk about a crazy-ass mascot. Anyways, Jared Clark, they brought him in. I don't think they brought him in for a pre-draft visit, but I know that they have interest in this guy. There is a connection to this guy in some regard. He's not just a nobody. They've talked to him. They've interviewed him. They've done something with this guy. He's 6'4". He weighs 334. Doesn't really have the true nose tackle size you want, but it's important to know, everybody watching this, 7th round guys are really just like practice squad guys or like guys that you want to see play in preseason. They're not guaranteed a spot. I mean, I can't even name 4 or 5 7th round guys off the top of my head that like the Steelers still have around. Like Derwin Gray, not here anymore. The other linebacker / safety from Maryland that we took that ended up being let go of, not here anymore. So like the 7th round, you can play around a little bit. I mean, Chris Oladokun wasn't here. They didn't keep him. So like, 7th round's kind of like your test the waters. Essentially, you're undrafted free agents that you don't want another team to scoop up. So Jared Clark, again, brings you some defensive depth. Does he make the team? Probably not. But if anything, he's a good practice squad guy, and maybe he develops. So that's who I have them taking with the first pick in the 7th round.
Double dipping at defensive line, I like it. I think it's necessary, and I agree with what you said, man. You can't have enough big guys in the trenches. So,
no, especially a guy like Gerard Clark. I feel like he could be a very nice depth piece.
One thing I will note about him is he's underrated athletically.
Yeah.
I think he has a basketball background. I could be wrong on that. I know he played tight end in high school.
Yeah, he's another big dude, but you cannot deny his athletic ability.
So defensive tackle in the 7th round, that's obviously for mostly depth purposes for camp bodies, like we said. I mean, that's pretty much what Carlos Davis filled in for how many years. So did Isaiah Buggs, right? Good for him. He signed a big deal with the Lions recently. Good for him.
Mm-hmm.
But that's pretty much what it is. It's depth and hoping you can get a gem. So, but speaking of guys that you don't want to be undrafted free agents and you just want to secure for your team, right? I mean, that's what the Steelers did with Connor Hayward, and he's a stud. I think he needs to be played more. In the 7th round, to the final pick of this mock with the 241st pick, you got to get receiver. We haven't gone receiver yet, right? But you need someone with size because we lack that. But you need that Kenny Pickett connection, right? Now, I'm not talking Jordan Addison. I'm talking Jared Wayne, wide receiver out of Pittsburgh. This was Kenny Pickett's second right-hand man.
Mm-hmm.
After, of course, Addison. But Wayne, man, he's coming off 1,000 yards, and that's without Pickett.
Yeah, after Addison transferred from Pitt to USC, I mean, this guy had to step up big time as their number one, and he did pretty solid.
Well, he's 6'3", 210. He has the size.
Mm-hmm.
He has the physicality as well. He can get vertical. He has that yak ability. I mean, I don't know where he'd be in the depth chart. I don't know if he'd even be a slot option or as a depth piece. I don't even know if he'd truly make the roster. But bringing him in because of the Kenny Pickett connection, but also due to his size, that might favor him in the long run.
That could. And the lack of receiver depth that we have currently, and the fact of the chemistry that he has with Pickett, I do sense, the Steelers definitely drafting some sort of pick guy, whether that's on offense or defense, just to bring a familiar guy in for Kenny Pickett. I could see something like that. But Jared Wayne wouldn't be a bad selection for depth, for size, for the connection with Kenny Pickett.
And he also has that big playability. I mean, you look at his stats and his average per season. I mean, it's pretty high. The guy has the big playability, where that's, again, getting vertical as a deep threat, yak ability. The guy offers it. I think pairing him with Pickett would do Pickett and him well. I think that make Pickett very happy to do us well for the receiving room. So you could probably get him as an undrafted free agent, but why take the risk when you could select him and make Pickett and yourself happy? So Jared Wayne remains in Pittsburgh. Now with the last 7th pick, man, what you got, bro?
So hear me out here, right? This is a team that is obviously going to be investing into the run game. And I don't think Benny Snell is going to be brought back in any regard. You have a better version, a more successful back, and a younger back in Jalen Warren, who is going to spell Najee Harris the way they'd hoped, I think, Benny Snell, or Benny with no jets, gave them. Now, a guy that I would not want to hit the open market here and to be an undrafted free agent is a running back from East Carolina, Keaton Mitchell, the running back out of East Carolina here. He, to me, gives similar Anthony McFarland vibes, but way more consistent, way less injury prone. I mean, this is a kid that had 2 back-to-back 1,000-yard seasons. This past season, he had 14 touchdowns with a long of 81. This kid is fast. He ran a 4.37 at the combine. He's definitely that scat back, that shifty back. I mean, this kid is lightning in a bottle. And I think with the retention of Matt Canada, I think they're going to want to still have some speed here. And Jalen Warren is a good mixture of speed and size, whereas Najee Harris is mainly just size and power. But we're going to need that scat back, that kid that's fast, that's your home run guy, your Travis Etienne, your home run hitter. And I really, really like what Keaton Mitchell has. And I know he's not a name that many people have probably heard of or think of, but anybody right now, do yourself a favor, watch some tape on this kid. I mean, he is insane. I mean, I love watching the moxie this kid has. He would fit in lovely with this team. I think that he would have a nice yin and yang composition with the 2 bruisers in the backfield. And, not saying anything should happen, but knock on wood here, to the powers that be, God forbid either one of them ever went down. You need someone to fill in that role. And Keaton Mitchell, again, only 5'9", 184 pounds here. He can play out a pistol. He can play out a shotgun. He can play offset from the quarterback. He's a receiving guy. He's a fast guy. He can run. I mean, this kid for his size plays like he's 6'3".
Yeah, he's exactly what we all hoped Anthony McFarland would be.
Yeah, or who remembers what was his name?
Trey Archer.
Yeah, that guy.
Trey Archer. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You talk about speed. You talk about big playability. Look no further than this guy in the 7th round, man. And to mix it up with the 2 backs we have, I think that's a great compliment. And if they really want to run the ball and they want to relieve their guys and they want that big playability, this guy's not shy of that.
Or just have a pure gadget type of running back / wide receiver right there. Because, Najee and Warren have showcased that they can be that, but they're not really pure gadget guys. This guy's a pure gadget guy. And as far as the number 3 running back position goes, it's kind of unknown at the moment. I mean, you could say McFarland could fill in that hole, but is he really proven for that? Why not bring in some competition like Mitchell to battle for that number 3?
That'd be great. Running back could be a very sleeper pick later on just because of that.
I could see it.
And a guy like Mitchell would be a nice selection. So great way to end the mock, man. And that'll close it out for our first post-free agency Steelers 7th round mock draft for the 2023 season. We don't know exactly what the schedule is going to be for the mock drafts moving forward. I know we have 4 weeks. We might do one every other week. We might do one every week. We're not entirely sure yet. It all depends on timing and stuff like that. Hashtag work life. But nonetheless, this was great, man. Another great mock from you. Another great collab. Another good talk, discussion. Always good to split mocks and share opinions. Always a good time. Glad you come on again, man.
Yeah, absolutely. It's always a blast to be here. And, I made a joke about how we're all busy and we still wanted to do this. But, I mean, this is one of the most exciting times of the year. Besides football season is, the draft, the new guys. It's like new presents on Christmas. So I'm glad that we get to share it together.
I couldn't agree more. And I don't know, man. I'm getting a new sense of excitement for this draft. I don't know what it is. I haven't been this excited for a draft.
Maybe it's the uncertainty of where the Steelers could go with the amount of holes that they got to fill, the amount of players that there is with those positions.
It's also how early a picks they have and how many they have, and also what they could do. I mean,
and then the new administration with Khan and company.
It's going to be exciting, that's for sure. So let us know you guys' thoughts down below. Let us know you guys' mocks down below. Otherwise, Sentinel, appreciate you for joining us. Another great mock from you, and you're more than welcome to join us in the Peace Outro. Rob, sign us out.
Like, comment, subscribe. And we'll see you later. Peace!